I'd like to say a few words about some matters arising out of the All Party Parliamentary Group meeting on ME on the 8th of October this year. This relates to the inquiry that the APPG on ME will be holding into services for people with ME. Firstly, although it was on the agenda of the meeting, it was a surprise as to exactly how they're going about it and who's going to be conducting the inquiry. The first set of surprises is to do with who is going to be involved, because who is basically the Gibson inquiry team, because most of them will be involved here. Dr. Ian Gibson, who's Secretary of the APPG, will be asked to take a leading role. Dr. Richard Taylor will be invited to be part of the inquiry. The Countess of Mar has already staked her claim as a member of the inquiry team. So many of the faces will be the same, but what will be different? Firstly, the status of the group that is conducting the inquiry. The APPG has a higher status. It is the lowest rung of the ladder of official parliamentary committees. That puts it one above the Gibson Group. The Gibson Group was on the official register, but it was not an official group. The APPG is an official group. The idea behind the inquiry is to interest a select committee into taking up the recommendations that the inquiry will come to. Sir Peter Spencer, the Chief Executive of Action for ME, made a very telling comment at the meeting where he said what he wanted was a short, crisp, tight report with clear recommendations. What I think he's failed to realise is that the more fudge and waffle that Action for ME and the other charities put into the report around the psychological and physical issue, the more diffuse the report will become, and there will be an obvious lack of clarity in the recommendations. However, this is getting on to how they're going to do it as opposed to who is going to do it. Now, who is also about how, because the inquiry will be using resources through Lord Darcy's office, because they have no specific resources of their own other than the parliamentarians' own researchers. The staff in Lord Darcy's office will be asked to make inquiries of strategic health authorities to find out what services there are for people with ME in their areas. In turn, those strategic health authorities will ask local primary care trusts, PCTs, what services they have or what services they require. This will be an effective survey of what the CFS clinics are, where they are, and how well they are operating in the view of PCTs. Therefore, you would think that the inquiry is going to deal with the issue of the CFS clinics. On the other hand, it may not, because Paul Davis of Rhyme specifically asked Dr. Des Turner, the chair of the APPG, who presumably will be chairing the inquiry, whether or not that would be the case. He did not answer the question on 2 occasions. I then asked the same question, rephrased in a slightly different way. He evaded the issue and talked about process. He said that the process of this inquiry was going to be similar to that of the Gibson inquiry. Evidence would be taken in written form first of all, and then various notables would be asked to give oral evidence in person to the inquiry. So, several things come out of that. Firstly, the issue of the independence of the inquiry from the NHS. Are we going to see something that is basically civil servant led, because it will be led by the staff in Lord Darcy's office, conducting a desk-based research project of how well these CFS clinics operate? The second issue is, will the inquiry actually receive evidence about how well ME patients and carers think that these services or clinics are operating and whether or not they are serving the needs of patients and carers. Perhaps they will not. Perhaps it will only be a question of the evidence, as the committee may see it, being official, that is, from official organisations or from the NHS, that they will take into account, stranding us out on our own as we were with the Gibson inquiry. This is yet to be seen. There is another controversy, and that is that in order to fund the inquiry, because there is no secretarial support for the inquiry other than the parliamentarians' own researchers, private funding will be sought. Charles Shepherd of the ME Association suggested that funding should be sought from a large drug company. That too raises questions about the independence of the inquiry. What kind of drug company would want to sponsor this inquiry? And if so, and on what basis? Although Dr. Turner considers that probably no drug company would wish to, as there is no effective treatment, in his view, for ME by any drug therapy, a drug company might wish to say that they think that they have got an answer in terms of antidepressants. Maybe. We don't know. We will have to find out. However, Dr. Turner is adamant that none of these factors will affect his judgment, or in his view, the judgment of his inquiry team. The inquiry team has yet to be properly put together, and although these draft terms of reference were agreed at the meeting, some of the people involved have not actually said that they would actually be panel members. So this is slightly up in the air. However, the thing about this is we are going to have to be very careful about how this committee goes about its work and whether or not the ME community will have an effective say in the matter. Lastly, but by no means least, there is another issue, and again one that was referred to by Sir Peter Spencer of Action for ME, and that is, whilst discussing the processes and procedures of the inquiry team, he said that in terms of a select committee making recommendations based on the APPG inquiry, he felt that matters could be changed significantly because when he was involved at a high level in defence, he, as a high level defence official, was able to co-opt people onto a select committee. He and Dr. Turner slightly disagreed here. Dr. Turner was talking about the parliamentarians on a select committee and Sir Peter Spencer about the officials. Therefore, Sir Peter's view of the matter is an inquiry can be steered by packing the inquiry with the necessary civil servants who will take a certain selected view of the matter, thereby prompting the politicians and parliamentarians to go along the road that the civil servants direct they ought to. Des Turner's view is, of course, that this is not the case. Parliamentarians are independent and may decide as they choose. But his view is if you get the right inquiry team of parliamentarians, then necessarily the result is almost a foregone conclusion. And this is why they feel that they're able to have a short, sharp and sweet inquiry that will report before March, April next year in order to deliver these clear recommendations and thereby get a select committee interested in the matter. Presumably the Health Select Committee, but that was not spelt out. However, I would advise all concerned to watch this space and certainly to make inquiries of Dr. Des Turner and also of Sir Peter Spencer of Action for ME and Charles Shepherd of the MEA. Thank you.